to a change. I guess it had to be this way. But do your best to try to stay awake. The day they closed the world, we all went inside, looking for the light. The day they closed the world, we all realize what it means to try. So hold on to the love, don't you be afraid. There come a time when you will have your say, and don't forget to pray the Lord to keep us safe. We will live to fight another day. The day they closed the world, we all went inside, looking for the light. The day they closed the world, we all realize what it means to try. I can feel it coming, I can see it miles away. I can feel the sun of brighter days. I can hear the laughter, I can see your smiling face. I can feel the love that's on the way. The day they closed the world, we all went inside, looking for the light. The day they closed the world, we all realize what it means to try. The day they closed the world, we all went outside, looking for the light. I can feel it coming, I can see it miles away. I can feel the sun of brighter days. I can hear the laughter, I can see your smiling face. I can feel the love that's on the way. I can feel it coming, I can feel it coming. I can feel it coming, I can feel it coming.
Do not fear, Saf is here, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Saf Buxy from Saf Surgery, and I'm your host for tonight in collaboration with Spiritually Gone Wild and Love Coach Academy. Wow, what a guest do we have today. My God, I'm shaking because the guest we got today is, how do I put it? He's a special breed. I mean, this guy is so special. It's like, I just feel honored and humbled to have Dr. John friggin' Demartini in the studio. John Demartini's here. How you doing, Dr. John?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
My word. You know what? My heart's beating. My heart's beating. Not that I'm putting you on any kind of pedestal, because I know how you feel about putting people on pedestals, and we'll talk about that later, because when I was at your recent breakthrough experience, and it was absolutely amazing. But for those of you who don't know who this amazing man is, I don't know where you've been. He's one of the key people from The Secret. John is one of those most well-known, renowned human behavioral specialists. He's written hundreds of books. He's been to he's read thousands of books. He's been to over 150 countries in the world, I believe. John, he's a speaker. He's just an incredible human being. John, I'm so privileged to have you, and welcome to SAF Surgery.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. It's great to be on.
Oh, I was speaking of Elena earlier, and she was telling me that you're not very tech savvy. And I said, well, I know why. Can I disclose to people why? It's because of the Victoria's Secret models that you have somewhere around there.
Yeah, I learned to stick to my core competency and delegate the rest away. So I'm a firm believer in not trying to do something that is anything other than what inspires me. So I stick to my research and my teaching.
No, thank you. Look, our show is usually about trauma, addiction, and mental health. And I know your principles and your method, in particular the Demartini method, you can adapt to all those three things. But in terms of, I guess, if we start with trauma, if you could tell me a bit about your teenage years and how, I know at the age of 17, something happened to you which more or less changed your life forever. And I know you've said this story many times, but there's a lot of people listening today who haven't heard your story. And where you are today and where you came from. It'd be good if you could share that with us, please, John.
Well, when I was 17, I was living on the north shore of Oahu, which is the surf center. And I was living right there on Iikai Beach Park, where Pipeline is, down and up and down that area. I was living in a tent. And I was a long-haired hippie surfer cat.
A bit more hair than you got at the moment, then.
Well, more hair, because I just got it cut off. But I was not taking care of my health as ideally as probably wise. And I ended up accumulating strychnine and cyanide poisoning from the things I was consuming. And I was surfing on a big line of K a day. And as I dropped in, was coming back up into a really long wall, my diaphragm stopped. And I was already having cramps in my fingers and toes for weeks, months. And everybody kept saying, well, you're surfing 11 hours a day. You got electrolyte imbalances and potassium imbalances. So I was eating bananas and stuff. But it turned out it was more than that. And my diaphragm stopped and I couldn't breathe. And when you're on a giant wave, you can't breathe. That's not a good sign. Now, somehow I was blessed to make it through that ordeal. I was pretty cut up. My board was smashed, and I came up onto the rocks. And I went into Haleiwa, which is nearby, little town. And from there, I passed out in a parking lot of a grocery store. And then I was woken up 3.5 days later in a tent where I was. I don't know how I got to the tent. I still don't know to this day who took me there. And I ended up having a real catharsis. And when I woke up, it's because a lady came to the tent and went, oh my God, you're dehydrated. And she came back with a bunch of juices and tried to get me and cleaned up my tent, took me to a health food store. And at the health food store, there was an this albino African guy that said, man, you need to take a yoga class. Your spasms are ridiculous, because I look like Joe Cocker. And because of the spasms, because it damages your neuromuscular system. And he was the one that told me I need to take a yoga class. And I was leaving that health food store, and I saw a little sign, little flyer on the door that said special guest speaker Paul C. Bragg at this yoga class. I never went to classes. I was a high school dropout. I was living in a tent. I'd been living on the streets before that. And all of a sudden I went to this little class. Something intuitively said, go there. And this one gentleman who was speaking, who was introduced, spoke to me and 35 students sitting on a floor in a way that really, really got to me. And it was the first time he said that we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a soul. And the body must be directed by the mind, and the mind must be directed by the soul in order to maximize who you are. And that you have to set goals for yourself, your family, your community, your city, your state, your nation, your world, and beyond for 100 to 120 years. Nobody ever talked to me like that. All I was told is I was a dunce. I'd never be able to read. I'd never be able to write. Never be able to communicate. Never be able to amount to things because I had learning problems, speaking problems, everything else. But this night, that was the first night in my life that I thought maybe I could overcome my learning problems and learn how to read. I didn't read till I was 18. And learn how to do what I saw in a vision that night, which was to learn as much as I could and share and be of some value to other people, like this gentleman was for me. And that was the turning point. And that was 47, almost 48 years ago. And I've never given up on that dream. I've just been relentless in the pursuit of trying to learn how to read. I learned how to do that. I excelled at that. I learned how to speak. That took a while. I do it like a madman probably. And everything that I was told I would never be able to do, I went out and just for myself, I wanted to know I could do it. And so I now travel the world teaching. And that's what I love doing. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do.
That's incredible. This guy, you must owe so much to. Have you seen him since that day? Have you?
I saw him. He offered a class at Fort DeRussy on the other side of the island at early in the morning. At early classes like 7 o'clock in the morning. So at 5:45, I hitchhiked to the other side and met with him. And everybody was 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s like he was. And I was the only teenager there. But I studied with him for 3 weeks. And I never really had the courage to walk up to him, a little bit intimidated by him. And he was very animated. And I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. Surfing, I had confidence, but not academia or learning. And I finally walked up to him when he said he was about to go back to California and I might not ever see him again. I walked up to him and I said, Mr. Bragg, you said that whatever we decided that night in our vision, in our dream, in the meditation you guided us through, whatever I saw would become my reality. And it would be my destiny. And I said, sir, I saw that I would be overcoming my learning problems and be a teacher, but I don't know how to read. And he said, that's not a problem. Is there any other problem? I said, no, sir. He said, here's what you do. He said, I want you to say to yourself every single day for the rest of your life, a simple statement. I am a genius and I apply my wisdom. So I started saying that. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't really comprehend what it was about, but I did what he said. He made me say it over and over again in front of him until my eyes closed and I felt something. And he said, now you say that every single day. I later learned that a genius is one who listens to their inner voice and follows their inner vision and obeys and lets the voice and the vision on the inside become louder than all opinions on the outside. They don't conform. They walk an unborrowed visionary pathway. But I did that affirmation, that internal dialogue, in addition to others that accumulated. And it changed my direction. It changed my trajectory, made me a checkup from the neck up to contemplate what I could be doing with my life. And it helped me start, I went back and I've got my first book, Chico's Organic Gardening and Natural Living, in a health food store that I went and it was mainly pictures of gardens. And I tried to read that. And that was my first book I ever went from cover to cover and actually did it. I didn't read it, but I looked at it.
Yeah.
And I had to go and with the help of my mom, I eventually moved back from Hawaii to California, hitchhiked back to Texas. And with the help of my mom, I went through a dictionary and studied 30 words a day. And I had to pronounce them, spell them, use them with meaning in a sentence every single day. And she did that with me every single day. And I didn't go to bed until I had 30 new words memorized. And after doing that for a couple of years, you start building up a vocabulary and I could start reading. And then I started reading encyclopedias and anything I could get my hands on, anything to do with human behavior, anything to do with doing something amazing with your life. And I'm very grateful for that. That one gentleman definitely had an impact, but I never saw him again after that day. But I became friends with his daughter later because I was speaking in Hawaii in 2009, I think. And I was speaking there doing the Breakthrough Experience, which is one of my signature programs, which I've done 1,100 times. I was speaking there and this little lady, short little lady named Patricia Bragg walked in the back of the room and found out I was there speaking at the Hyatt down in Waikiki. And after a little break, she came walking up to me and she grabbed my hand. She's 4'7". She walked and grabbed my hands and looked up to me. And she said, "You remind me of my father. You were inspiring today, like my father was." And that meant a lot. So I've been friends with her since. And she contacted my daughter, who's taken over my work, and talked to her about taking over my work, just like she took over her father's. So he had an impact on my life.
I've obviously I follow you, Dr. John, and I've seen you a couple of times, and I've never seen you this emotional. Actually, I'm sure you have been, but I haven't personally seen it. It's quite. You're gonna get. I'm gonna start going in a minute, John. Seriously. Wow.
It was inspiring to meet somebody who believed in you more than you believed in yourself, and could see in you more than you could see in yourself, and directed you more than you can direct yourself, to gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom.
And I think that's what you do in your work today with other people, right? You see things in us that we don't see in ourselves, and you bring it out on us, and it's just wonderful, because you've helped so many people over, was it 47 years you've been doing this work? It's just absolutely incredible. And from someone who was a school dropout, they said you could never read, you could never write, you had this accident, and since that day you put 30 words from a dictionary. Did you do that alphabetically, by the way, or was it just random words?
Going alphabetically through a Funk and Wagnall's dictionary, which I still have. It's all covered in tape today because it's fallen apart. But I kept that book. It's dehydrated and kind of brittle, but yeah, I started doing it alphabetically. And then I started reading encyclopedias. I could not put them down. My mom, when I was turning 19, she said, "Son, what do you want for your birthday and for Christmas?" Because I was born on Thanksgiving Day. And she said, I told her, I said, "Mom, I want the greatest teachings on the face of the earth, the greatest writings humanity's ever created from the greatest minds who ever lived." And she said, "Are you sure you don't want a T-shirt?" "No, I want the greatest ideas by the greatest minds who ever lived." Okay. Well, she had a brother who was a professor at MIT, who was a chemist and physicist. And as a gift, he sent 2 giant 6 by 6 by 6 foot wooden crates on a flatbed truck to our house. And I went out with a crowbar. They came, put it down on the ground, and I went out with a crowbar and opened up these wooden crates and carried thousands of books into my room and surrounded my room with it. I had this little yoga mat in the center to face the sunrise. And I just had stacks and stacks of books. And I lived reading 18 to 20 hours a day to try to catch up with everybody else. I never stopped.
Wow. There's so many things we could, thank you for that, Dr. John. There's so many things we could talk about, but obviously the current situation that we're in, and we'll come on to your method, the Demartini method. We'll come on to the breakthrough experience, which I had the pleasure to attend at the beginning of this one last month. Me in London, and you were where you are, and it was such an eye opener for me. And I plan to carry on learning from yourself and from Elena as well, who is like my mentor right now, and she's like my mentor. You're like my mentor, because what I wanted to ask you is, for people out there during this current situation with the pandemic, how can we manage our emotions at this time? Because emotions are all over the place.
Emotions are perceptions. They're skewed. There's feelings that can be polarized and subjectively biased and distorted. And there's feelings that can be synthesized and seen objectively as they are, which inspire. There's a hidden order in the apparent chaos of our life that we don't always see. And knowing how to ask the right questions which our intuition is attempting to prompt in all of us, allows us to see the hidden order in the apparent chaos. So an emotion is where we have divided our full consciousness, full awareness, into conscious and unconscious parts in varying ratios. So if we're conscious of the upsides and not conscious of the downsides, we are infatuated or elated or drawn and attracted. We're energy and motion towards that. And if we're conscious of the downsides, not conscious of the upsides, we're repelled and resentful and avoiding it. So we have a seek and avoid mechanism, which is an impulse and an instinct, which is like an animal emotion. And that's because we see a prey or we see a predator. And so we respond in our subcortical areas of our brain and our amygdala in a way to protect us in a survival mode. So emotions are survival feedback mechanisms to let us know when we have a skewed, subjectively biased system. And we need false positive perceptions to get the adrenaline going strong enough to chase a prey and to avoid a predator. So we, in survival mode, we automatically initiate those extreme emotional reactions. But if we know how to ask questions that equilibrate the mind and bring equanimity out of inequity, and we're back into balance and objectivity, instead of having emotional feelings, we have synthesized feelings. We synthesize the pairs of opposites into an integration, which, after doing it with hundreds of thousands of people, bring about a gratitude of the hidden order, a love, because I always say gratitude is the key that opens up the gateway of the heart, and out comes love. And love radiates out and window washes the mind and brings inspiration to the mind and enthusiasm to the body. And certainty instead of uncertainty of the emotion, certainty and presence. Instead of living in past and future and uncertainties, you're now present. And that is always available to us at any moment, no matter what the world on the outside appears to be. And so we have control of our perceptions, decisions, and actions. And if we ask questions that equilibrate the mind, our decisions and actions change. And so it's never what's happening out there. It's what we perceive out there.
Yeah.
And this is important because William James said the greatest discovery of his generation in 1895 is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. So I don't see the coronavirus as something, a drawback. And I know that people have been thinking I've been crazy saying that, but I can call it Saint Corona just as much as I can call it, bad Corona, because it's forcing us to be resilient and adaptable and to look at what's true and to make sure we care about people and to make sure we're really meeting people's needs, not taking things for granted, making us more efficient. It's changed the ecological landscape and some of the reduction. I mean, New Delhi, I saw new pictures of New Delhi. You can actually see the mountains.
You see the sky, yeah.
You see the sky in the mountains, first time. In Los Angeles, the cleanest air in 18 to 20 years. So there are upsides that if you take the time to look, they're always there. There's never a side without the opposite side. There are always these complementations. When you see both sides, you see the hidden order and you're grateful. When you don't see them, you have the emotions. And the emotions are letting you know physiologically that you've skewed your view and creating symptomatology that is misinterpreted by allopathic approaches. Instead of seeing them as on the way, we're seeing them as in the way. We want to suppress the symptoms instead of actually learn from the symptoms of what they're trying to do to guide us back into authenticity, back into equanimity, and seeing the hidden order and being graced by the magnificence of the world that we have. Because we really have a magnificent world. This is the best planet I've found to do seminars on, by the way. But I'm a firm believer that if a person takes the time to look, now I've been teaching students these pairs of opposites. And the first week that Corona started shutting people down in March, I started getting in thousands of letters of people writing down, doing what I've asked, to write down all the upsides to keep themselves centered. So don't let the external world run them. People who live by their highest values and live authentically according to what their ontological identity represents, those individuals are more objective and see both sides and embrace it and have more resiliency, because objectivity means neutral. And they don't feel the loss of things or feel the gain of things. So they're more resilient and they help their immune system function. But they're individual that's letting the outside world dictate their destiny and are extrinsically driven and are in the survival mode, avoid pain, seek pleasure, and letting sensationalism of some medias distort their realities just to sell media, they're going to actually run their resilience down and make them even more vulnerable to something that majority of people are not being affected by. So I just wrote an article, I'm just finishing up now, about the immune system. And many times we've all been in a situation where people are surrounded by all kinds of health issues, viruses, bacteria, and they don't get sick, and other people do. So it can't be only the virility of the organism, there has to be the other. And now with the knowledge of the immune system, the way it's changed, they don't see it as the germ theory, as Koch's postulates and Fleming and any of these other guys, Pasteur originated it. They were thinking that the virility was all in the outside organism. And they now realize that it's really also our relationship to it. So now, instead of trying to get rid of the germs, we're now looking at our immune system is not there to attack germs that are foreign substances, but are actually there to wildlife manage the ecosystem and make sure that proper ratios of bacteria in the microbiome are being managed. And so we now realize that it's not about how bad these things are, because you have pleomorphic organisms that can go from positive to negative anytime our state of mind changes. But to be able to maximize our ability to bring ourselves into homeostasis, and the organisms then take care of themselves, and our immune systems rally. If we're not in homeostasis and we're not in a resilient state, we suppress and regress our immune system to primitive forms, and we lose out on some of our antibody functions and our optimizations and other aspects of our immune system, and we shut it down. So it's very important to live by priority. And I believe that all the symptoms in our life are trying to guide us to do that. And if we do, the coronavirus can be a catalyst to help us live the most authentic lives we can be. It's forcing us to be authentic. And I believe that everything goes on in life is really just a feedback for that objective.
Wow, that was incredible. I mean, when you were talking, I was thinking, whoo! It's just so much sense what you just said. It's like, it's just, thank you for that again, Dr. John. So you got high values and you got lower values, right? This is what you're saying. And if we concentrate or focus on our high values, because they are values that are quite high, there's more chances that we're going to get, we're going to get magnetic to that. We're going to draw to the high values. If it's low on your list, it's something that's not going to really happen. So, but you can't have high values and low values. You talked about prioritizing your values. If you have a set of questions or value determinants that actually determine what your values are and what your low values are, how do you implement that with your students? How do we determine what our values are?
Well, on my website, drdemartini.com, which I see you got down below, thank you. There's a complimentary free value determination process that can assist people in determining what their life demonstrates as valuable to them. Because if I ask people what they think their values are, I've been doing it over 42 years, they don't accurately assess them, amazingly. I'll give you an example. I'll go off on a tangent for a second. I was in South Africa, and I was speaking to about 5,000 people. And I asked, how many of you would like to be financially independent? And every hand went up. Literally every hand went that place. 5,000 people put their hands up. I asked, how many are financially independent, where your passive income is exceeding your active income, and you don't have to work, you work because you love to. All the hands went down except 7 people. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Everybody says they want to be financially independent, but that's not what their life demonstrates. Because their life demonstrates that they're spending money on consumables that depreciate in value so they can live the immediate gratifying lifestyle of the rich, to make them feel better about themselves, paying excessively for brands that may not be necessary, so they can look good in front of people because of fear of rejection, because they've got people on pedestals and they're minimizing themselves in return. But most people don't realize that that's not really what they value. They really value immediate gratification and consumption of lifestyle. In fact, right now I'm seeing people putting up their foreclosures and their for sale signs because they have a big house, but they really have it on loan from a bank. They don't really have wealth. So majority of people, only less than 1% really make financial independence. The rest of them hope to. So when you ask them what their values are, they'll tell you, oh, I want to be financially independent. Oh, I want to do this. I have no interest in what people say. I have interest in what their daily life demonstrates. So I had to come up with a value determination process that was to get past the BS and get into what's really going on.
You can say it, Dr. John, you can say it.
Yeah, but to get beyond the BS, it's because if you don't get what's there, you'll be setting goals that are fantasies, and fantasy goals set up nightmare lives. So we want to get objectives, primary objectives in life. So what I did is I looked as carefully at what people do, and I found 13 value determinants that can help a person get a clear, more objective about what's important to them. And the first thing is, what do you fill your space with? Believe it or not, even children, little babies, if you throw something in their little crib, if they want it, they'll put it in their mouth, they'll look at it, they'll observe it, they'll hold on to it, they'll do it if it's valuable to them. If it's not valuable to them, they'll kick it out, cry and scream and get out because they don't want something that's not valuable in their space. And that's no different in our adulthood. So if we look carefully at what we fill our space with, the three most consistent items that we keep in our most intimate or personal space, which is 1.5 to 4 feet away within us, and look at what we really keep. In my case, the computer. The computer is one of the most valuable things I have in my life because it has all my teachings on it, all my research on it. This is like my most important item. So you got to look at what is it that's most valuable in your life, and don't compare it to what other people think it should be. You know, some of you think if you meet a person that has a high value on children, and then you say your highest value is business, they'll think, well, you've got your values crooked. You need to have your children important. Everybody's projecting their values onto you, and you're not here to live in their values. You're here to live in your own values, because you can't be authentic trying to subordinate and conform to extrinsic sources like that. So you got to look at what your life demonstrates. You fill your space with. That's one. And I get the top 3 items that you fill your space with most consistently, where you spend most of your time. The second one is your time. You find time, make time, spend time, and create time for things that are valuable to you. But you don't get around to having time or making time for things that aren't. So you got to look at really honestly, how do you spend your day? I spend most of my day teaching. I mean, I literally have hours, crazy hours sometimes. I spend my day teaching. If I'm not, I'm doing podcasts, webinars, radio shows, writing articles, doing consult. I'm teaching one-on-one or teaching one-on-many every day. Most of the hours of every day, 7 days a week. So that's what I love doing. So I look at what's highest in my value. What does my life demonstrate I spend my time on? And then I look at second most and third most. And you just look at your day and be honest about it. Because we want to write down what we wish it would be, what we hope it will be, what it used to be, what we pray it's going to be, fantasize it's going to be. But I'm not interested. I'm looking at what your life demonstrates. Because what your life demonstrates is reality. And what you fantasize may not be. So I look at how you spend your time and how you fill your space. The third one is when you're doing something really high in your values, your energy goes up. So I look at what energizes you spontaneously. What do you spontaneously wake up and you start having energy doing it? I've seen people who can go nonstop for hours, like myself. I can do 18-hour days of research, no problem. I can speak all day for 18 hours a day. People go, how do you do that? Because you're doing something that's really high in your values, your energy goes up, and you don't even think about time. You don't think about breaks. You don't think about like that. That's a symptom, not a solution. And finding out what is really, really, really important to you will energize you. But if you're doing something low in your value, you depreciate. And you're designed to. Your physiology is designed to self-depreciate and drain when you're not being authentic to what you value most. Because your highest value is what your identity revolves around. So if you're not doing that, your physiology is letting you know you're not being true to yourself. You're not being authentic. You're going into lower priority things and devaluing who you are. Because as you go down the list of values, you devalue yourself. And if you go up the values, you value yourself. And you can't expect the world to value if you don't value you. I look at how do you spend your energy and what is it that energizes you most? In my case, you probably see me warming up here. You know, I'm starting to get going here. But then you look also at the next one. The fourth one is resources, your money. What do you spend your money on? You find money, make money, spend money on things that are valuable to you. But you're not going to, if somebody comes up to you and sells something that doesn't value, you don't value, you're not going to want to spend your money on. Nobody wants to blow their money on something that has no value. So you spend your money on what you value. And if you look at where most of your money goes, second most and third most, it tells you what you value. When I was in my 20s, I used to buy 40 to 70 books a week on average. And most of my money was going to teaching and gathering materials, researching and gathering books and building libraries. And anything to do with learning, I was involved in it. So every dollar was going into learning. I was paying for my professional school. I was buying books. I was teaching every night. I mean, it was just constant learning. So you look at what you value most and don't compare it to what it should be according to somebody else. Shoulds, ought tos, supposed tos, got tos, have tos, and must are not you. They're internally injected, inculcated values as a result of sitting there and subordinating to other people you think have something you don't, which in fact is not true. You're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you, but you actually have it, but you're not honoring. And you're envying them and trying to imitate them and injecting them and offloading your decisions onto them because you think they have knowledge that you don't have, which is not true. The fifth one is, where do you have the greatest degree of order and organization? Because wherever you have a great deal of order, in my case, my knowledge is all organized and ordered. I know where everything is and how to access it. I know where it goes. And so whatever's really valuable to you is ordered and organized. And whatever's not, you don't get around to doing it. It's usually a bit chaotic. If it's not valuable to you, you don't put an order to it. The next one is, the sixth one is, what do you have discipline and where are you reliable and focused, where nobody ever has to remind you to do it. Nobody ever has to remind me. For 47 and a half years, nobody's ever had to remind me to learn and to teach. Nobody. You might have to remind me to go work out. You might have to remind me to do something else, but not what's highest on my value. And that's why finding out what that is where you're going to excel. When Ricardo in his economic laws said that each country has its own competitive advantage, its resources are competitive advantage. In the individual, the most resourceful aspect of our life, it gives us the greatest competitive advantage, is that which expresses and reflects the highest value. Because that's where we have the greatest resource of energy, creativity. Our whole brain is this highest value seeking and fulfilling organ. It's filtering with the pulvinar nuclei, filtering reality out to make sure we get the most information to fulfill that. Our brain is designed to make sure we live authentically. The next one is, what do we think about how we would love our life to be that shows evidence coming true? Because our innermost dominant thought becomes our outermost tangible reality. And what we think about becomes that outcome. There's a new movie that's just come out called How Thoughts Become Things. You may have seen it. It's a sequel to The Secret. I was blessed to be in. And it's about how our thoughts literally impact our perception, decisions, and actions, and how it affects our life. But what do you think about that's showing evidence of coming true that you want? You don't want to write down what has no evidence, because that's fantasy. You said the Victoria's Secret models. I joke about, being Hugh Hefner, and taking over his positioning with a Victoria's Secret. But there's zero evidence of that ever happening. There's no evidence of that, but there's evidence that I'm learning and I'm teaching. So I bet it's a core competency. The rest of it's just delusion. So finding out what you think about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence coming true, and write down the 3 answers for all these value determinants. Then what are you visualizing about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence coming true? Then what are you internally dialogue and internally conversing with yourself about how you would love your life that shows evidence coming true? And then the next one, what do you converse with other people about most, about what's really inspiring to you? People come up to you and say, how's your kids? How's your golf game? How's your business? How's your health? They want to talk about what's important to them. What do you most consistently want to gab about, talk about, converse about, and lead conversations to? That tells you what's valuable. The next one is, what inspires you and brings tears to your eyes? When I spoke about when I was a teenager with Paul Bragg, it brings tears to my eyes. It's not a wound. It's not hurt. It's tears of inspiration, because it's such a moment of meaningful impact on my life. What are those moments that bring inspiration? It brings a tear to your eyes. Because if you capture the content of your mind at the moment of the tear of gratitude and the chills up the spine, it gives you content and it's guiding you and directing you on your mission in life. Your mission is a reflection of this highest value, and that's a moment of confirmation you're on track with it. So capturing those moments of inspiration and the people that are common, that are inspiring to you, there's something common to them. Finding out what that is helps you clarify the mission. And those are the mission have a message, and what makes you want to express your creativity to the world. The next one is, what are the 3 most consistent, persistent goals that you've had that your life demonstrates achievement in? You know, it's not things you hope to do, but you have evidence that it's moving and it's unfolding. It may not be complete, but it's unfolding. You know, I have evidence that I want to travel the world and teach. I've got 154 countries where I've spoken. There's evidence of it. You know, there's evidence that I wanted to travel the world and do that. And I did 428 speeches one year. So there's evidence that I obviously want to share messages. And then the last one is, what do you love studying about, reading about, learning about? What do you watch on videos, YouTubes? What do you want to fill your mind and incorporate into your thinking? When you really love something, you want to get to know them. You meet somebody that you're really inspired by, you want to get to know them. When you want to learn and you want to study and you want to fill your consciousness, your sphere of awareness and influence with what you value most. So if I look at those determinants and find out the top 3 answers of those 13 determinants and look at what answer that reiterates most frequent, second most frequent, third most frequent, it gives me a much more objective information about how my life is demonstrating what's important to me. And then structuring your life by delegating lower priority things and getting on to filling your day with the highest priority things and doing it in a way that's creative, that serves people. So you have the deep fulfillment and meaning of doing something that makes a difference and getting paid to do it, to delegate, have the money to delegate, and then hire people that love doing the things you want to delegate so they're inspired. So you can create a chain ripple effect of inspiration and economic growth in a society and be a leader and exemplify what's possible as a human being.
Wow. I heard you say once that on a Monday morning, if you need motivation to do something, it can't be high on your value.
Exactly. If you have Monday morning blues, Wednesday hump days, thank God it's Fridays and week friggin' ends, you missed out on the magnificence. Because every day is a day of inspiration if you're living by priority. I don't think of a days, Monday, Friday, it means nothing to me. The days of the week are artificial things that was an astrological incorporation into cycles of solar cycles. And they really are meaning. For the masses, it was used because they're uninspired. They're living deontologically by duty. They're not necessarily inspired. And they're having to do what the leaders were telling them to do. Because all values go from those who have the most power to those who have the least power. And the people at the bottom are deontological, living by duty, not design. People at the top are designing it. They're living by design, other people's design. And if you're doing that, you're in a quiet life of desperation, and you need escaping. You need a break. You need a vacation. You need a retirement. The people that are inspired by what they do, they don't think in terms of breaks. I was doing an interview on the Wall Street Journal, and the lady came and said the newest research points that we need a 15-minute break every hour for 45 minutes of work and 15-minute break. I said hogwash. When a person is inspired by what they do, they don't want to take a break. They'll take a break when their physiology says it's time to take a break, and they go pee and they'll go put some food in there. They'll nibble because they don't care about a break. People that want a break are people that are uninspired, escaping, and people don't get that. But the people I know that have done extraordinary things, the least they want is the break. They're engaged. And if you're filling your day with really what's inspiring to you, you don't think about, I need to escape it. I mean, your basic necessities, yeah, but when you're inspired, you don't think about that. I've seen interviews of people that have done extraordinary things and read the biographies of thousands of people who have done extraordinary things. And they were relentless. I was in near Ontario, in a little city in Ontario doing the breakthrough experience. And the head of Harvard School of Business School was there attending my class. And afterwards, he invited me to dinner. And he said, you know, John, when you said about when people are inspired, they don't think about breaks. They're relentless. He says, man, you just nailed it. And I said, how come? He said, where my office is at Harvard, I can look out. There's kind of a courtyard there, and you can see all the offices and all the professors' offices. And he says, and all the professors that are PhDs, they're usually there till 5 or 6, maybe 7 at night. And they go home. The professor emeritus's are usually there till 9 or 10. And the Nobel Prize winner's there after midnight, almost every night. He says, that's the difference.
Wow. But surely, Dr. John, there must be the odd morning when you get up and you think, I really can't be bothered to do this again. You must have had that. And if you have had that, how do you get through that?
Well, I can't say that that's my day. And the only time I may do that is when I haven't delegated something and I'm uninspired by that delegation that I haven't delegated. So when I first started, I was on my journey before I learned to delegate at age 27 with the help of a time trap by Ellen McKinsey. I was doing a lot. And when you're doing a lot, when you start a business, you're doing a little of everything. But the wisest thing to do is to find that one thing that you do that's the masterpiece that produces the most to liberate you doing what you love and delegate the rest. If you're not delegating, there's no way you can have an inspired life. People don't get that because they're doing low priority stuff all the time. And every time they're doing low priority stuff, they're draining themselves. So I don't have that. I'm pretty inspired by what I do every day. And people don't, anybody knows me knows that's 7 days a week. But people don't get that because they allow themselves to go by other people's expectation about what they should be doing, ought to be doing, and supposed to be doing, and live in a tradition or a convention or a mores instead of giving themselves freedom to create something new. I mean, I imagine if all of a sudden, if Elon Musk was to say, oh, there's no way I can make it to Mars because that's something that takes multiple governments and monies. And then he went on there and he didn't even know if he could do it. He just went out there and just went down the path. And here we go, went up to space the other day. And I've been involved in the space industry myself because I was involved in Spaceship One. And so I know that I was there when Peter was actually doing a presentation about going to space that inspired Elon. So I'm absolutely certain these guys who are inspired, they don't let things stop them because they're on a relentless pursuit to fulfill what they call their divine master plan. And when people find that, they don't have friction and resistance the same as other people. They see things on the way as feedback, not success or failure. They don't get addicted to success. They don't get frightened by failure. They're on a mission and they see both of them are necessary as feedbacks to keep them on track. Just like symptomatology, it keeps you on track. So it's all about your perception. And when you're living by priority, your perceptions are, in a sense, stressful instead of distressful. And that frees you up to do a lot more in life. And I always say, once you understand that, energy is infinite once you recognize that source.
I want to go on to you've mentioned it a couple of times, Dr. Demartini, about the breakthrough experience. And I know you've spoken, obviously you talk about the values in greater depth, but could you tell us a bit about the breakthrough experience, how you came about it, and how it benefits people who attend it? I've attended it, and as I said, I was mesmerized by it. And like you said earlier, I was dying for a piss, but I wouldn't go because I did not want to miss what you were going to say. And normally, if I got to go, I got to go, Dr. John. But I was so engrossed and so I was grabbed by what you were saying. I did not want to miss anything, so I held it. I held it. And please, let's have lunch. Let's have lunch.
You didn't see the fine print where you can get Demartini, catheters in advance. I'm joking.
But the thing is, I know you also mentioned that if it was live, because of the pandemic, we did it online. We're lucky we got the break because if it's live, you just
I delegate breaks, but the breakthrough experience showed up in my mind on a flight from Houston, Texas to Montreal on my way to Quebec to speak to a group of doctors there. And I was, I guess you could say, sort of closing my eyes and meditating a bit on a plane. And three things popped in my head. One was power principles of achievement in business, which was an idea of what I want to say to help people build their business. One was what are miracles and the natural laws that people have confused with miracles? What does it represent, mean? Because a lot of people are wanting miraculous things in life instead of grounding themselves in the objective understanding of what brings what other people call miracles into their life. And the other was the breakthrough experience, but it was originally called the Breakthrough to Higher Power because I was interested in having the VIP seminar, which is vision, inspiration, and purpose, vitality, intensity, and power for a very important person. That's just my little acronym. And it was originally going to be limited to 12 people around a board table. and I was going to spend 2 days doing everything I could to help them get past whatever they perceive is in their way of what they really want. And if they weren't clear about what they wanted, then I was going to help them get clear about it. And as a board table executive kind of function originally, I started delivering that program shortly. And by the way, in my head, in that vision, it said, an idea whose time has come. Within the tiny seed lies the mighty oak. No, within the tiny acorn lies the mighty oak. And that just came to me, and I wrote it down. I still have the form, the little folder that I wrote that in. Still have it in my office. And I started presenting that program. It just kind of came through as like an automatic ideas popped in my head. And I just started writing down what that would be, that program. I presented that program, and I kept presenting that program. And people changed the title automatically into the Breakthrough Experience, because it was an experiential program, and they called it the Breakthrough Experience because they broke through so much, and it was experiential. Even though it was also an intellectual pursuit, it was experiential, because there was like a lot of wows and shifts in perceptions and things going on. So it became the Breakthrough Experience out of people's feedback. That's what they kept calling it. When are you going to have that next breakthrough experience? And so I changed the title based on people's feedback, and then refined it over the years. And I've been doing it going on 32nd year. I've done it 1,100 times. And I'm getting ready to do one in Sydney, Australia, from here in Houston by online. It's 2 a.m. till 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then, so what it is basically everything that I've been able to incorporate from all of my research on how to help people break through whatever they perceive is in the way of whatever it is they want in the 7 primary areas of life. So it could be their intellectual pursuits and learning capacities. It could be their business achievements. It could be their financial independent achievements. It could be their family relationship or marital issues. It could be social leadership restrictions that they've got, that they think they're blocking themselves from being a leader. It could be health issues. It could be their existential pursuits and their inspiration. Whatever they come with, my job is to give them a tool, which I call the Demartini Method, on how to take whatever is going on and start seeing it in a way where it's on the way, not in the way. So you can move forward and break through the so-called limitations, because most of those are subordinations to outer authorities that we've given power to. What people have labeled limited beliefs are only injected values of other people that they're trying to live by that they can't, because that's not what's really authentic to them. And their body is designed to live by authenticity. And when they try not to, they put up resistance and have hesitation, procrastination, frustrations, and distractions, because it's not really true for them. And they don't know it because they haven't learned what really was valuable to them and what their life really demonstrates. So I show them how to transcend that, break through that, not subordinate. I show them a tool on how to take any emotion that is polarized, that is distracting, it's occupying space, time, and mind, and how to synthesize it and get to a, as Deepak says, a timeless mind, ageless body state, so they go moving forward with more vitality and liberation. And it's inspiring. And I give them a manifestation form on how to take goals from thoughts down into what's actually a manifested goal. So a step-by-step process. I distinguish between fantasies and true objectives, how to get the blood glucose into the executive center to get the executive function to override the amygdala so you're not distracted by impulses and instincts. I show them how to love and appreciate themselves no matter what they've done, and other people no matter what they've done, so they're not distracted by subconsciously stored brain noise. I could go on with it. It's an inspiring weekend for me to get to do, because I watched lives change over the weekend.
Well, my life definitely changed, and I'm definitely going to be training further with yourself, and I can't wait till October to do the Demartini Method. How can people sign up to this? What's I guess go to your website, is it, and they can sign up, or how can they get involved?
The website, thank you for putting up there. That's lovely. The website is an educational experience. If you've been on it, you know what I'm talking about. You could go on the media, and there are thousands of radio, television, newspapers, magazines, podcasts, webinars, things like that. You could just educate. There are online programs. There's seminars. There's products, books, tapes, CDs, DVDs, hundreds of them. It's an educational resource for people who want to empower all areas of their life. So, and then also is the value determination process, which please take the time to do. It's private. You can do it. I do it a week later, do it a month later, because you'll bullshit yourself, excuse the expression, up front. And it's wise to do it again to make sure that they're really honest with your answers. And I've had people who send letters to my address. They figured out my email, and they say, thank you. I just did this on your website and it changed this. And so it's an educational. And then some people come on to my daily or my weekly webinars or podcast or whatever we're doing, because we're doing hundreds of them. And I'm just an educational guy. I'm a man on a mission to take whatever research that I learn and pass it forward.
You're one of the most wonderful guys I've ever known. You're an amazing inspiration to me, and I'm so happy that I've got involved with your network. And I'd like to give a shout out to Man Meet, because without Man Meet I would never even got involved. And I remember I tried the value determinants, and she said, don't bullshit. I obviously did, because when I did it again at your breakthrough experience, it was totally different. But anyway, we all live and learn. So thank you very much for.
Well, thank you. And Mamit is there in London, and she's been very, like my daughter, they've been relentless in the pursuit of mastering it and sharing it with people. And I'm very grateful, because it's very inspiring. Both my daughters were on the breakthrough experience, and it's so inspiring to be working with your own family and helping get the message out to people. And Mamit's done the same. She's helped a lot of people in many parts of the world.
Yeah, she's great, and Elena as well. She's great with me, and I'm grateful for having both of them and yourself in my life. Would you like to take? We've got a couple of minutes left, Dr. John. Would you like to take any questions from the audience? I'm sure there might be some people who've asked.
I'll be glad to. I have another meeting shortly after this, but I have a few minutes.
Is there any questions that anyone want to ask? Please continue. But just before we close up, there is someone. Okay, can you see that?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Let me just address, that's Kim, I think it said Kim.
Can we have that up again, please?
Yeah,
I'm
Kim.
really struggling with severe anxiety. Any tips? Okay.
Yes. All right, let me just define anxiety. So let me just put it into context. We have what they call philias and phobias. Philias are impulses that we seek, that we assume in the future. They're assumptions in the future that we assume is going to be more positives than negatives, more gains and losses, or advantage and disadvantages. And it's kind of like an infatuation fantasy that we have about somebody or something or some event. Phobias are assumptions that we're about to experience just the opposite, more drawbacks and benefits, more negatives and positives, more pains and pleasures. So anytime we have an assumption that we're going to see more positive negatives or more negatives and positives, we're going to have an emotion, we're going to be seeking or avoiding, and we're going to create a parasympathetic seek, rest and digest response, or a sympathetic fight or flight response. Now, anytime we have a perception that's imbalanced and it's not objective, we store that conscious and unconscious split in our subconscious mind, and it's stored there. And the next time anything that might remind us of that situation, within 200 to 800 milliseconds, our brain fires off with an impulse and instinct to protect from it or seek it. And we're hooked by those things. So a phobia is an assumption there's more drawbacks, but an anxiety is a compounded phobia. So let me give an example, and I'll use the classic example. Let's say a mother and father are fighting at home, and they have a 1-year-old or a 9-month-old baby, and the baby's sitting on the floor, or just sitting there and playing, and all of a sudden mom and dad fight, and it gets a fist fight and a yelling match, and the baby doesn't know what to do, and the baby runs off to its room and hides under the bed and covers its ears and covers its eyes, shuts its eyes, and just feels. So it shuts down its audio and video, and it opens up its kinesthetic and goes and hides under the bed. Mom and dad calm down. It falls asleep. The baby falls asleep. The next morning, dad's off to work. They're calmed down. Mommy picks him up, takes the baby off to the grocery store. In the grocery store, they're going down an aisle, and all of a sudden, a man approaches mom that has blue jeans and a white shirt, just the same as dad the night before has. And so now the baby assumes blue jeans, white shirt, brown hair, brown mustache, just like dad. It creates a reaction of angst. because it has an association, a secondary compounding association in the brain from subconsciously stored information that's stored there that now all of a sudden comes up and puts on a defense to protect itself from something like that happening again. But all of a sudden the baby starts reacting and gets in front of the mom and looks over and protects the mom, or gets behind the mom and tries to pull mom back out of fear. And the mother goes, why is the baby reacting? Doesn't make any sense, just a man walking by. But there's associations with that man that she's not paying attention to. Now the child goes down the next aisle, and there's a man now with blue jeans, yellow shirt, brown hair, brown mustache. So now the child has a slighter reaction, but still there because there's enough associations that remind him of the night before. He feels awkward and feels hesitant and doesn't trust the person. Its oxytocin levels are down and its norepinephrine goes up, cortisol goes up, osteocalcin goes up, serotonin goes down. All of a sudden the baby withdraws. And all through the grocery store, there's stimuli that are secondary and tertiary stimuli that's reminding them of that original event. If that original event is not neutralized, lots of things can compound it. And after a while, you lose contact with what the original event was. And you have this anxiety initiator that all these different associations, compounding tertiary associations, are reminding you of something that you don't even know is stored back there in your subconscious mind. So you can either peel back the onion and work your way back, or you can find out what the original event is by the right questions and neutralize that original thing, and the whole cascade drops and the anxiety is gone. But a lot of times we have these stored, subconsciously stored pains without pleasures in our mind, and we haven't learned to ask the right questions to find out in the moment, go to the moment, wherever that challenge was, what's the upsides, and neutralize it out. If you go in there and neutralize it out, the whole thing dissolves. Anxiety is really simple to dissolve that way. It's just a matter of asking the right question.
Thank you for that answer. Look, we haven't got any time for any other questions, I'm afraid. But if anybody wants to ask anything, please ask me on my website or on my Facebook page. But if you want to go to the Breakthrough Experience, it's going through here at the bottom. Visit www.drdemartini.com, who is a legend. And I have been so grateful to have you on my show, Dr. John. I'm definitely going to get you back on again because you've got so much sense that you talk about, and your message is so powerful. I've been on the Breakthrough Experience, and I'll be on it again. I'll be in your teachings in October in London, and I can't wait. And I'm going to see you on the 31st of July. You probably don't even know that, but your PA does for the recovery summit stroke experience that we're having over 3 days. But we've got you on for a couple of hours at least, I think, on the 31st of July, and I can't wait to have you there again. Thank you so much. Do not fear, Saf is here, but so is Dr. John. Respect, peace, and thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, guys.